the city. Like I said, my name's Molly from the city. Welcome and thank you for everyone attending today, both online and live here in our council chamber. So we're here to talk about the community development block grants and to get feedback from you about what you'd like it to see us focus on and what you would like and think the largest needs are for the city of Greenwood. So first I'm going to introduce Alicia Vaughn. And Alicia is our consultant who helps us through all of the hoops that we have to jump through for block grants. So we're very fortunate to have her as a resource. She has a ton of experience managing these grants and has been instrumental with us getting these done. So are you going to give the presentation?
I thought you were going to give the presentation. You did such a great job yesterday. I was not going to mess with.
Well, I'm totally fine. I just realized today when I was looking at it that you actually wrote notes about what you wanted to say. So I don't mind either way, but if you would jump in when we're.
Yep, absolutely. You're doing great.
Awesome. So
I'll take this.
Wonderful. That would be great. So let me just start with the basics and the timeline that we're dealing with. So the grants that will open up on May 6th will actually begin October 1st of 2022. So we have to do all the upfront reviews of what applications are submitted. You have about a month to submit an application. Then we have a CDBG committee that reviews them. And then we get all the paperwork done and execute all the contracts so that you're ready to go by October 1st. And the grant year runs from October 1st through next September 30th. So you have to have 12 months to spend the money granted. So the money that we have available is $329,172. So that's really good. And that number is determined by HUD. And how HUD determines that is by our population and a calculation with the percentage of low to mid-income families that we have in the city of Greenwood. So the purpose of community development block grants is threefold: decent and affordable housing, suitable neighborhoods, and economic opportunities. So let's talk about examples of, and this is not an exhaustive list. This is just to get your brain thinking about what qualifies for these types of grants. So they split out into several categories. The first being affordable housing. Renovation of homes is definitely a qualifying activity. Minor repairs to homeowners, rental assistance, which we utilized a lot of the grants that we've had to date on this due to COVID. So, and down payment assistance is another category under housing that qualifies. In the area of public services, which about 15% of this total budget can be allocated for services. And I'd be more than happy to send all these slides to everyone if you just send me an email and I'll tell you what that is at the end. So you don't have to take notes. Public services, so food pantries, senior services, child care or youth services, and job training. Some other eligible activities are economic development, so facades for businesses and capital investment. We've used a lot of our funds for, I don't know, does it fall under economic development or
I would say public facilities.
improvements? So we have spent a good amount of money on Northeast Park. But public facility improvements, focusing on ADA development, renovations and building community centers, which are open. The catch is these facilities have to be open to the public and available to everyone, not just a specific group who would like to build them. Are there any questions about any of these categories?
Question in the chat.
I asked them to, Jeremy, can you keep an eye on the chat and see if anyone asks a question? I asked them to put their company and so if you have a question, just let me know.
One person.
One person asked a question. Thank you. Oh, okay, great. All right. So, Greenwood first got involved with community development block grants in 2019. We had the unique opportunity to start it in the fall of 2019. So our first grant ever was literally months before COVID. So what this did was, so we've never really experienced a normal grant cycle with these grants, because immediately following COVID, when COVID first got in place, the federal government realized that the communities who used community development block grants, they had all the information, they knew the low to mid income percentages of those communities, so it was easy for them to send CARES Act money to all those communities, which includes any community over 50,000 in population, which is why Greenwood is the only community in Johnson County that qualifies for these grants, because we have over 50,000 in population. So the federal government through HUD, we got a percentage of our CARES Act money very quickly, and we're able to execute a lot of assistance for the city of Greenwood because we are a CDBG community. So back in 2019, before any of us knew about COVID and before anything about COVID and funding happened, these were the goals that we set in a 5-year plan. Safe and decent and affordable housing, help the most vulnerable households, those low to mid income households, invest in public infrastructure, and advocate for fair housing. So this program locally has these 4 goals. So now we get to the crux of why we're here and the information that we are hoping that you guys will input, which is where we think our largest challenges lie. So what do you think Greenwood residents are facing, especially as we emerge from this pandemic? Well, think about that. And let me tell you a little bit about what we have done let me tell you about some of the projects that we have done so you get an idea of what we have been doing. Keep in mind, almost 100% of our time has been spent in COVID. So we got pitched a very severe curveball right when we were learning about how to facilitate these. So what the mayor said within weeks of receiving the first cache of money from CARES Act was, I want you to get a hold of every food pantry in the city and make sure our community is being fed. So our top priority initially was food pantries. We've done a very good job of keeping the money flowing toward our food pantries, including St. Francis and Clare, Our Lady of Greenwood. Are those the two?
And Gleaners.
And Gleaners, both in conjunction with Our Lady of Greenwood and separately. So our first step was to get food pantry supply, and that worked very well. I'm trying to remember the amounts, but I'm terrible with numbers. Kevin reeled off all the amounts. So $30,000 to OLG, maybe another 10 or 15 to Gleaners, and 10, 25 maybe in total to St. Francis and Clare. All of those folks have been doing an outstanding job of feeding residents. The second priority we had was rent assistance. So about $150,000 went to the United Way of Johnson County and to help with rental assistance. Then we also have invested heavily into our local schools. So Greenwood schools, in two different areas, they determined that mental health was priority for them. And as their families were coming out of COVID, that mental health assistance was not ever in the budget and was desperately needed. So I think about
That's 150,000.
150,000, thank you. And then the other area we looked at and focused on and partnered with Ivy Tech was for people who needed to shift their jobs. So if they got displaced during COVID, Ivy Tech offered several certificate programs that were short-term, and we financed the tuition for these students so they could get recertified in areas that our local companies needed. So workforce help was there, and also the Johnson County Community Foundation started an employee resource network with several companies in Greenwood, and we funded part of that program so that folks there, those are people who are working inside our local companies and are assisting their own employees to make sure they have transportation and, you know, helping them budget and make sure they have the resources they need to stay employed and stay at the companies that they are at. So that's been our first foray into these grants. I will tell you, we learned a very valuable lesson that although 2/3 of the population is in the northern part of Johnson County, a significant number of our resources for services reside in either Franklin or in Indianapolis. There really aren't nonprofits serving the Greenwood community that reside in Greenwood, which was just eye-opening for us, and it was a great lesson to learn. But that changes how we have to facilitate these grants. So are there any questions or any thoughts on what you see as the challenges for Greenwood?
Could I speak up for a moment?
Absolutely. Can you tell me who's speaking?
I sure can. My name is Joni Emmert, And we have, for the last 13 years, run a single women's ministry in Greenwood in Johnson County called Haven Sanctuary for Women. And what we do is we facilitate women who need assistance with rent, with parenting skills, with financial skills, all sorts of different areas. And what's happened is we had been gifted to use certain homes at a couple of the local churches in Greenwood. Well, unfortunately, 69 is coming down county line and taking our homes. So what sets us apart from a shelter is that all our women are required to work. So we're more of a hand up than a hand out, but we've had wonderful, wonderful, wonderful results. Our first original graduate now owns her own business, went from homeless to owning her own business. But the biggest challenge in Greenwood and Johnson County is there is no housing for these women. We beat our head against the wall trying to get help for these women. Right now, we've got about 5 of them in Trotters Point, which is in Greenwood on the east side. It's an apartment complex. They work by their income, and we help supplement that income so that they can continue to stay, in the area where their children go to school. So we were just super interested to hear about this because we've been plucking away at it for 13 years. So we understand the need up close and personal.
Excellent. And you make a lot of really good points. And I think you hit the nail on the head by saying we don't have a shelter and there is a dynamic need for that type of thing. So what I'm going to do is, instead of answering all your questions in this meeting, I'm just simply going to connect you with Alicia Bond, who's sitting in the room right now, but I don't want to drill down on one specific thing. If you two could connect after this meeting, Alicia is our expert, and she will walk you through what is the best thing for you to apply for, how to get an application submitted well, and what it takes to fulfill the application. But it sounds to me like you are right in the sweet spot of what this grant is used for. So I'm glad you're online, and we'll get you answers to your questions. Is your email in the chat?
Well, we were the ones that had trouble getting it put in.
Okay.
But if Alicia will, it's real easy, and I can, if I can go to the one that's the CDBG Greenwood and just say, hey, I'm Joni Emmert. I'm the one with Haven Sanctuary for Women. And will that work? Is that okay,
Yeah,
Alicia?
that's perfect.
Okay. Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you very, very much.
You bet. And thank you for all you do for our community.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Great thing. So is there any other thoughts on other big needs? Okay. So let me ask you another question about housing specifically. So I have a list of 4 items, and I'll read them all to you in case somebody's on the phone and can't see them. But the question is, so community development block grant funds need to support affordable housing. So here's the question: what type of housing service is most needed in our community?
Well, I can,
All right.
yeah, I can answer. Yeah, I can answer that. Sure.
Okay, okay, all right, go ahead.
Well, our biggest problem is that, as you know, and I think it's only going to get worse. We started Haven Sanctuary for Women in 2008 when we went through the first recession, and just the demand is so great. So if the daycare goes up or the car breaks down, these women are one paycheck away, exactly one paycheck away from being homeless again. And once they're evicted, then, your hands are tied in helping them in a lot of ways. So, I mean, our goal is we couldn't compete in this real estate market. We have all kinds of people helping us, but you'd go to, try to find affordable housing, and it really just is not here. We get probably 3 calls a week of people locally, because we have women all over, but we have locally that say, where can we put this woman? And the biggest need, I'm afraid, is emergency housing for the short period of time.
Okay, so I like what you're saying, and I would agree that, it's a definite need. It's really exciting to me, so Leanne Wilbur was on this call yesterday, and she is head of Habitat for Humanity.
Right, yeah.
And so the questions that she was asking, and I don't mean to infer what her application is gonna look like, but I'm very excited about the questions she asked, because these are the questions. What if Habitat renovated some existing homes and kept them affordable for different types of parts of our community, such as battered women or et cetera, et cetera. She didn't use that example. I'm filling in the blank, trying to connect your need to what she's thinking.
Right, we've done that. We've flipped a couple homes and actually turned a 4,000 square foot home into 3 units, but it was on the property of the church and the church got sold. So, but we did all the work, flipped it and paid for all that ourselves and housed 3 different families in that particular. And so that's really the interest that we have also.
Perfect. So it sounds to me like I'm hearing consistency, and people are thinking and working on housing, which we're at a disadvantage. We have no sort of housing authority, and with no plans, the city has no plans to get involved in any of that. Just because it's outside our wheelhouse, but it's exciting to me that organizations in our community are looking to do that, and I think these funds are exactly targeted at what you are talking about.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll do our best to submit the best we can then.
Okay, so that's good, and so that sounds to me like you're thinking about fixing up the housing that we have and repurposing it and potentially putting it out there for your clients.
Correct.
Okay, so there are a couple other categories. Does anyone have any additional thoughts on the needs of Greenwood in terms of housing? Should we be helping new homeowners afford a house? Should we help current homeowners improve their housing? Or any other idea about housing that we haven't mentioned?
I'll tell you something that I think, I hate to dominate the conversation, but something that we found over the 13 years is these women don't fall into one age category. We have a woman right now who's 77, lost her husband and found herself homeless without his Social Security. So she lost everything and we were able to get her assistance. So I feel like there's such a broad group of people that really need help, that I just think it's wonderful that this is what's happening and that there's a realization that it is out there and it is real from every age group.
Joni, would you mind if I quoted you on that?
No, I don't mind at all. I don't mind at all.
As an outcome of this meeting, we certainly will be communicating with the public your thoughts and your ideas.
The other thing,
Okay.
in an earlier slide was rent assistance, which isn't on this slide, but it was mentioned earlier. So.
Gotcha. Rent assistance. So that falls under some little different rules,
okay.
but
Sorry.
but it's housing. It is housing and it's good. Okay, good. Excellent feedback on that slide. Anything else?
Yes, this is Christy with the Education Foundation. I just wanted to say one thing that we've run into. We have a fund that we use. It's called the Helping Hands. We have a private person who has been helping sponsor that. Occasionally, we have families who run into situations where they need like an immediate housing type situation where their house is burned down or flooding, or obviously some of them might be, situations where something has happened and it needs a home improvement that they can't afford. So they have a need for like an immediate housing situation. And that would be something that would fall under our Helping Hands category. Is that something that we could apply for in accordance with this as a housing assistance?
This is Alicia. It is, we'd like to to, or community development block grant fund, they like to kind of keep things very, everything in their different silos, if you will. So if you're helping homeowners with a prayer, that's one type of activity, or if you're helping them find a new place to move to temporarily, that's a different activity. Or if you're just helping them renovate the home altogether, that's a third activity.
So I think what Alicia is trying to say is if you would focus on one of these areas, that's better for you to not only qualify, but facilitate this grant.
Okay, so then could we focus on providing temporary housing to whatever the emergency is resolved? Would that be a better way of narrowing it down? Okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
So what I think Alicia is trying to say, and just focus on, don't try and eat the whole whale. Just focus
Sure.
on one service or one program so that you not only get introduced to community development block grants and learn how they work, but it's much better on the management side for us, since we're newbies at this, to keep it simple.
Sure.
Okay, good. Anything else?
That's all I've got. Thanks.
Okay, so here's another question. How about our local businesses and workers? What challenges are they facing?
Keeping employees, I would think.
I think you're right.
Yep, 100%. Everywhere we go, they're hiring, and the businesses are suffering and closing because they can't get staff. Whether it's they can't afford to pay them enough, or they can't afford to get there, or the extent of it. So that's definitely one thing that our businesses are facing.
And I think I'm
ahead.
sorry, I think supply chain is just, it's just crazy what all it's affecting in general.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to a pastor from a church this morning who was talking, they run a large childcare facility within the church, and their biggest challenge was the rate that some of the businesses in the area are paying. They cannot find staff
Mm-hmm.
without significantly raising the prices of their childcare, which their childcare is a ministry, so their families are struggling, and so they have just received some state grant money to help them do that, which is very exciting. But so think in terms of those types of things, businesses and ideas that may have worked before COVID, but now due to an employee shortage and very low unemployment, like in the threes, I believe, in Johnson County, or the low fours. I don't remember what the most recent numbers are, and also the pay scale has shifted on a lot of businesses. So it's tough to keep up with the Amazons and the FedExes of the world when you're a little business. Anything else? Great. So we've talked about paycheck to paycheck. So what programs, and we've talked about some programs and services that might assist our residents. Are there any other thoughts or ideas on how to help Greenwood residents make it easier to make it paycheck to paycheck, or not have to live paycheck to paycheck?
It'd be wonderful if we could figure out a service. We do it individually through Haven, and I actually teach that class. It would be nice. So many of these people really just don't have an understanding of budgeting and going forward. They're willing once they learn. It's just a learning curve and a process. I know a lot of local churches offer that, but I think in the bigger scope, There's just not a lot of that. And I don't know if there'd ever be a way for that to be taken on at a library, offer something for these people or a recommendation, for somebody even to sit down with them one-on-one and show the care that they really have for them, personally, as opposed to being maybe lumped in.
Yeah.
It's surprising what they can learn if you just can get them in a smaller group like that, kind of build a relationship and move forward. Because we deal with that every day, obviously.
I love that you brought that up. There is an organization which I'd love to connect you to called Bridges Alliance of Johnson County. And are you familiar with them?
Well, I just recently heard about them. We just found out about them.
Well, you just described the program that they facilitate, and
Nice.
it's we can talk about this offline,
Sure.
but for the sake of this conversation, it starts as a 14-week, they meet weekly for 14 weeks and talk about budgets and all the things that you just described. And they have what is called intentional friendships. So they have not a mentor as much as a friend to walk through all of the things that they're dealing with, whether it's how to get their car repaired to make sure they can get to work and those types of things. So I'd love to connect you to that group because it sounds to me like your clients are the people who they coach.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Great. All right, so wrapping up here. This is the website. This is where we will be posting the applications. This is where we post who gets the awards. This is where we post all our paperwork and all the information. And this is the place you go if you want to get added to the email list that goes out to notify people of applications and who gets the awards and all the information we can think of to send out to the interested parties. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know, this funding is available. It will be available annually. And we are excited and anxious to have you give us your ideas and let us know what you think we should be doing with this money and different groups that would be a good candidate to apply for this grant, and anything else you want to tell us. So I'll repeat our email address, which you'll find it on this webpage, but it's cdbg@greenwood.in.gov. So if you have any thoughts or ideas, or you just want to pick our brain, we're up for it. Email us at that email address, or you can get online to this webpage and it'll give you a connection point. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So we are going to put the application up live on the 6th, I believe, of May. And it will be up for about 30 days. It'll be due in about 30 days. So we'll be sending an email out to the email list. So if you received information about this meeting, you will receive information about the application being available as well. And if you want to be added to that list and have not received any emails from us, please go to this website and sign up.
You're right, May 6th.
May 6th. Awesome. So are there any questions or any other thoughts on what we've talked about for the last 40 minutes?
I have a question. This is Chrissy again. So one of the services that we're looking at, the initiative is to do we've been doing quarterly grab and go community bags, coordinating with Grace Assembly to provide some food assistance for the community of Greenwood. Mostly to the Greenwood schools, but we opened it up to everyone, in the city of Greenwood who have come. There wasn't a criteria that had to be Greenwood students, but we tried to just kind of see which ones were. One of the things that we wanted to do is look into getting a mobile bus that could provide a delivery of the grab and goes for those who can't attend, because a lot of times we know students are those in the community who do have that need but are unable to have transportation to and from the events or the food pantries to get assistance. Would that fall into the category of the bricks and sticks part of the grant, or would that fall into the part of the social services?
Okay, so let me answer a couple of ways. First of all, let me tell you that Grace Assembly has a grant for their food pantry already from CDBG.
Okay.
And I don't believe the vehicle qualifies under this particular grant. But the food pantry supplies, which Grace Assembly has already got. So you're already there. So earlier when we talked about pick one project, this project is already being handled and already being assisted.
Well, they're not funding, we're not using their pantry. We were just utilizing, working with them. We don't use their pantry as the source for the food. We just partnered with them for communication throughout the city to reach more for outreach. But there wasn't funding that was, we were getting outside sponsors to purchase the food. We weren't utilizing their pantry. That makes sense.
Okay, Christy, this might be something that we.
Yeah, I think I just need to talk to you about it. It's okay, Alicia. I'll reach out. I've got some more questions. I think they're going to be more specific. So I'll reach out to Alicia.
Perfect. Thanks, Christy.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, good. This was a lot of good ideas. Thank you so much for coming and taking the time to do this with us today. Tell your friends. Tell your coworkers. Excellent.
Thank you for your time.
You bet.
Thank you.